In minor hockey, I was watching, let me put it this way. I was watching the evolution of my son and a couple kids that are in the OHL now. And I've done this before, but my son is the closest thing to me, so that's what I'm going to use. And I've watched, he was a very good hockey player in youth hockey, obviously, right? He was a high draft pick, obviously a good player. And when you get to the OHL, like it's a different test. But when you watch, I was just watching over the years how the hockey will sort itself out. So my point of this is that, you know, the other morning I was watching, there's guys here at 6:30 in the morning watching their little kids getting private lessons twice a week. Not private, like a very small group twice a week. And they don't miss a beat. And they sit and they watch everything and they talk about it. And they got to make sure they're making all the right moves for their kids and stuff like that. And it's all for naught. And they worry about it. You know what I mean? Like it's like anxiety, and this is what they talk about. And this is the most important thing in the world, is that their kids get the right coaching and this, that, all the other thing. What's going to happen is either you're just going to be good enough or you're not. Now, what should you do when you're a kid? Yeah, you take care of your skill. Like, but the kid's got to want to do it. Do the skill work and do that, play hard, all those kind of things. And at the end of the day, if you're good enough, you're going to get drafted or you're going to get a scholarship or whatever. But I've always said to people, I was like, because when they talk and they get all freaked out, I go, your kid is not going to know how to play hockey until he gets to that next level, OHL, college, where it's actually a business. Yeah. And they don't understand that that's a business of hockey. So I've watched my son, and I think I was telling you this the other day, how he was like, not that his game has changed, but it's a structured, thoughtful. Yeah. He knows a role. He's a much, much, much better hockey player, obviously. But the system takes care of itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have no choice but to figure out how to play now.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll just kick you out of here. They'll just get rid of you.
Well,
right?
But the system is so good. Yeah. You're playing with the best. Like the minor, I always say that about people taking the minor hockey out of it. So, for example, we were talking the other day, yesterday. The parents were nuts about it. Talk about it. Like always worried about it. Trying to get them on the right line and all this stuff. And I saw what the player was. He was a good, hardworking player, but he didn't have a lot of creativity. He didn't have a lot of necessarily hockey sense, but he worked hard. He was a great kid, and I felt bad because I'm like, I just want the kid to enjoy hockey, but I know that car ride home, and I know that everything that goes with it is just going to be, you got to be better, and that's all they talk about. So, anyways, moved away, and this is what I'm talking about. The hockey takes care of itself. So now he's playing at a little bit higher level, not much, but a little bit higher. And there's the same thing has happened before. Works hard, no points. So the dad or the system, which I think the system at some point, the youth hockey coach and stuff was like trying to get him to understand the type of player he is, but the dad wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And if he would have actually paid attention to what his strengths were, instead of trying to be something that he's not, and worried about points, and worried about, that guy got points and more ice and power play, he probably could be an effective player at a higher level.
Yep.
But now he's got zero chance because it's so ingrained in him, almost like evolution, that that'll never change. And he's just going to be a frustrated kid that works hard. And from the parents' point of view, it's going to be he got screwed.
Oh, yeah.
But he didn't. But the system takes care of itself.
Yep.
So if you learn all I'm not talking the details of hockey, but if you understand, like we've talked about a million times, that you don't have to score goals, but if you do the little things and try to learn the game, but work your skill, work your shot, work your skating and all that stuff, but do things right. If you get drafted, you're either going to be good enough or you're not. And then when you do, the system takes care of it. You become who you're supposed to become under a system.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Well, I think we're kind of getting around the topic. I know we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the maturity thing today.
Yeah.
And for me, the topic is for both the players and for the parents, though. Like there's a maturing process that both need to go through.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we're talking about the taunting thing, if you're gonna be the type of kid that's gonna go around chirping all the time and showboating and whatever, when the moment comes that somebody cleans your clock for it, or there's consequences for that behavior, whether you get fined or beat up, whatever it is, that hopefully is a moment of maturity for you where you're like, okay, I should probably tone it down a little bit or whatever. But it doesn't have to take those moments.
No.
And that's kind of when we are sharing messages that we're sharing on the podcast. That's kind of what we're trying to help people to do, is get those maturing moments to happen sooner.
Yeah.
So whether you're a mom and dad or whether you're a player, you need to start the exactly what you just said, that whole spiel you just went on. You need to start thinking of it in those terms. So for this kid you're talking about, as mom and dad, if you can have the foresight to say, okay, he's either going to make it or he's not. We got to let things play out. But then you try to actually understand the kind of player that your kid is. And the lack of understanding of hockey from these parents in particular, it ends up hurting the kid. Just or the over involvement, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because it could be a lack of understanding, and it could be just being over involved and trying to make all these moves for the kid and whatever. And when you don't really have an understanding, which I know these parents don't, then it just ends up being the kid that suffers, right? And how you're saying he's a hardworking kid. There's a lot of benefits that the kid has to his game that could be used in a role if he adopts his role and tries to be exceptional at his role.
Yeah.
But, because of the parents, they're trying to change him into something that he's not. And that ends up costing him down the line. If he would have just kind of embraced himself a few years ago and really focused in on doing that part of his game and doing that well, that could have been something that ended up getting him more points if that's what your goal is.
Yep.
Or just getting him noticed in general, just as somebody who could be valuable to a team because he does this thing really well. And I played with a kid that was exactly like that. He ended up getting drafted, but he could never figure out himself what kind of player he was. Yeah. And when I look at him now, like at the time, I couldn't analyze him either. I was his age. But when I think back at how he used to play now, it's like, man, he was big, he was fast, strong, and he could rip the puck. Reminds me a lot of Charlie, actually. Yeah. And it's like he could have played like that. Mm-hmm. That's how he could have played that role. Play rough and tough, skate in straight lines, get your shots on net. Yeah. But what you're not is you're not a playmaker. You're not a quarterback. You're not the kind of guy that can carry the puck through everybody and score. You don't have that phenomenal hockey sense that some of these top skill guys have. You don't have that, and that's okay.
And it's totally okay.
You can develop yourself in the other roles because there's a lot of other roles that are needed. Yeah. But everybody wants to be McDavid, man. Like everybody wants to be the puck carrying.
As I'm watching more and more, like this is the most I've watched outside of when I played and coached. So I have a big gap of not being in the OHL. But as I'm watching more and more, I'm watching the vanilla. There's a lot of vanilla, and this, I think there's a lot of people that just don't understand that. And the coach is probably telling them, and maybe the message isn't clear, or maybe the message is just lost. But a lot of kids play, and they're not bringing anything other than, like you said, trying to be a skilled guy. You can't have all skilled guys. So that's why someone that has someone that's like maybe a big hitter that goes out and hits and hits and hits and doesn't get a whole lot of points, he's so valuable. Yeah. He's so valuable. Or a guy that's just a defensive specialist. And, there's sometimes not a lot of glory in it, but it's like, now you got something. Okay, I need you. But if I have everybody that's, great stick handler, and it's good. I'm not cutting that up. That's for sure. It's the greatest thing to watch, a beautiful skating, skilled hockey player. But if that's all it is, it's like, then if you play a team, you got two guys running around hammering guys and stuff, then it changes the tone of the game. And if you don't have anything to offer back, then you lose.
Well, the best example I have, I use this all the time. You never see, or rarely do you see, three like superstar skilled players on the same line.
Right.
For 5-on-5 play.
Right.
You might see it if it's overtime or when there's extra space and they have more time with the puck. Then you might see that. But normally you have a guy that maybe makes plays, a guy that's a shooter, and a guy that mucks it out in the corners. Yeah. That's a common dynamic when you get to higher levels, at least. Yeah. When the kids are younger, sometimes they'll load up superstars all on the same line. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most effective. Yeah. Because when you're playing 5-on-5, only one guy has the puck. And if you have three guys that always want to have the puck all the time, then you're asking you're asking for conflict, So if you could be the guy, let's say like this kid we're talking about, who's really hardworking, skates in straight lines, can just get the puck off guys or whatever, that's super beneficial to the two guys on your team, maybe the shooter and the guy that makes the plays, because they need somebody to get in the corners and get the puck out. And guess what? You get the puck, pass it to playmaker guy, he makes a play and we score. Now you have an assist. Yeah. And then, I mean, it always ends up coming down to points for people, but they don't have the proper context of like, you could play different roles to get the same end goal if you want to be a guy that's getting all kinds of points.
Tom Wilson's still a star.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
He gets 20 goals a year, I think.
Well, Cass too. Cass is another good
he's a
example.
star.
Of that.
They're
He's a
so
star, man.
valuable.
Everyone knows who he is.
Everyone knows
You know,
who Cass is.
Very, very well-known name in hockey.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's Connor McDavid.
That's right.
It's because he's tough. It's because he's a guy that you need to be aware of when he's on the ice.
Yeah.
Big guy.
Yeah.
Plays physical.
Yeah.
But he also has some skill where he can make a play.
He's got skill.
Right? So
people would underestimate, I guarantee.
But this is the point, right?
He's so good.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
But not what he's known for.
No.
And there's room for that.
Yeah.
And it's actually necessary especially at the higher levels, because you're not going to be, not everybody can be the number one scorer, you know?
Yeah.
And I think at the younger levels too, it's important to start as a coach, as mom and dad, is to start talking about things in terms of knowing your role as a player. You know, like, what are you actually good at?
That's
like,
why those 3 questions I always say is, what are you good at?
Yeah.
What makes you have a good shift?
Mm-hmm.
If you played 10 games, you got 0 points, then you're probably not, it shouldn't be goal scoring. It should be playmaking. It's probably something else. And how can I make my game better?
Yep.
And if you elevate the 3 things that you're actually good at, you might get a few points now.
Yep.
But you'll get noticed nonetheless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would be useful if people listening, coaches, parents, you start to talk about things in that way. Like, what are you actually good at? Because, you know, I think back, just using Charlie as an example again, he doesn't play. I said this to you.
When he was in Bantam.
When he's in Bantam. Like, the comment I would make when we'd go watch is like, man, I'm expecting to see Connor McDavid when I'm thinking of like a kid that really stands out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting to see.
Yeah.
But as I start to watch more closely, it's like he makes a really good pass off the wall. He gets back to his D zone. He's always picking up a guy on his way back or whatever.
Yeah.
He finishes his hits.
Yeah.
He wins a lot of faceoffs, and you start to pick up on all these other elements of the game that are very important.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to become, I would think, because I'm not a scout, but somebody like a scout, because you're starting to pick out
you're 100%
things,
right.
that gaps that you need in your team, and this kid can do that, this kid can do that, this kid can do that. It's not just I'm looking for Connor McDavid, because there's only one Connor McDavid, man.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a lot of those, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, he gets titled as a power forward.
Yeah.
With skill. That's a good title.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Not a lot of them around anymore.